My wife cheated on me with my best friend, and now she's claiming she's entitled to half my $250, $0 inheritance and the house, even though I caught her transferring $100, $0 into her sister's account. Can I fight for my life savings? I never thought I'd be the guy sitting here telling a story about how my wife, Sarah, cheated on me with my best friend, Mark. Honestly, I didn't even suspect anything at first. Things in our marriage had been a bit rocky, but I chalked it up to stress, work, and just life getting in the way. We'd been together for over 10 years, and I genuinely thought we had a solid, if not perfect, relationship. But then, out of nowhere, everything blew up in my face with a series of events I still can't fully wrap my head around. It all started about 3 months ago. Sarah had been acting weird, more distant, more irritable, like she was hiding something. She'd come home late from work more often, claiming she was just staying late to finish projects or meet with clients. But I noticed her phone buzzed constantly, and she'd always keep it face down or hide it. When I walked into the room, I brushed it off at first. Women sometimes need their privacy, right? Then came the little things that started to add up. Her phone bill spiked unexpectedly, and I found strange receipts for hotel stays and dinners in the city. She told me she was meeting up with old friends from college, but I knew those friends. None of them lived anywhere near us, and I'd never heard of some of the people she was supposedly meeting. I even caught her deleting messages on social media, which struck me as odd because Sarah was pretty open about her online life before. One night I decided to do some digging. I was suspicious, but I didn't want to jump to conclusions. I installed a spy app on her phone, something I'd never thought I'd do, but I just needed to know the truth. That same night I sat in the dark, watching her messages scroll across my screen. What I saw made my stomach drop. She was texting someone named Mark almost obsessively, and the messages weren't innocent. There were explicit texts, flirtatious comments, and plans to meet up. I saw photos, her in lingerie, him sending pictures of his own, both of them clearly getting ready to meet somewhere private. It was like a punch to the gut. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. My best friend, Mark, was cheating with my wife. I felt like I'd been punched in the chest, like the world was crashing down around me. I couldn't breathe for a second. My mind was racing. How long has this been going on? How did I not see it? And what the hell am I supposed to do now? I kept watching, trembling, as the messages got more intense. They planned to meet the next night, at some hotel downtown. I couldn't believe it. I had to confront her, but I didn't want to do it like some lunatic. I needed a plan. I needed to catch her red-handed. So I waited until she left for work the next morning, then I went through her phone, read everything, took screenshots, and made sure I had enough evidence. I felt sick. My whole world was collapsing around me, and I was furious at everyone, her, Mark, myself, for not seeing it sooner. That's when I decided I couldn't keep quiet anymore. I needed to confront her, face to face, and I needed to do it right. I knew she'd lie, she always did. She was good at spinning stories, making herself the victim, saying I was paranoid or overreacting. But I had proof now. That day, I waited for her to come home, and I was ready. I didn't want a messy scene, but I knew I had to get the truth out no matter what. When she walked in that evening, she looked tense, like she knew I knew something. I kept my cool, showed her the screenshots, and asked her outright, "Sarah, what the hell is this? Are you cheating on me with Mark?" Her face twisted into a mixture of shock and anger. She immediately started lying. She said I was paranoid, that I was spying on her, that it was all a mistake. She claimed she was just talking to Mark about business, that they were old friends, nothing more. But I knew better. I saw the messages. I saw the pictures. Her reaction was nothing short of bitchy. She got defensive, started yelling, calling me crazy, accusing me of invading her privacy, of not trusting her. She even had the nerve to say I was overreacting, that I was making a big deal out of nothing. But I wasn't stupid. I knew the truth. And the truth was, she was cheating on me with my best friend, and she thought she could lie her way out of it. That moment hit me hard. I felt a mixture of betrayal, anger, and pure heartbreak. I trusted her with my life, with everything I had, and she threw it all away for some guy she'd only known a few months. I couldn't believe she'd do this to me, to us. And Mark. I couldn't believe he'd do this to me, too. The two people I thought I could trust the most in this world had betrayed me in the worst way possible. It was a blow I wasn't prepared for, and honestly, I didn't know what to do next. After that confrontation, everything changed. I remember standing there, staring at her, feeling this cold numbness settle over me. She kept denying it, spinning some story about how I was paranoid, how she'd never cheat on me, and how I was just overreacting because I was insecure. Yeah, right. I knew better. I had the proof. The screenshots didn't lie. But hearing her lie so brazenly made me realize just how deep her betrayal went, and that she was willing to drag me into her web of lies without a second thought. The worst part was the way she looked at me, like I was the crazy one, like I was the one losing my mind. That moment, I felt something inside me snap. I realized I couldn't keep pretending everything was normal. I couldn't keep living in a lie. I started to think about the future, about what I wanted, what I deserved, and how I was going to get out of this mess. I couldn't just kick her out and call it a day. Not yet. I needed leverage, something to hold over her head because I knew she'd try to spin her way out of it, try to keep the money, the house, everything. I remembered that she'd been transferring money into her sister's account 100 just like that. I saw the transfer confirmation myself. That was a huge red flag. It told me she was planning to move her assets around, maybe trying to hide what she'd been doing, or maybe planning to run away with some of the inheritance I was supposed to get. And the inheritance, that was the biggest piece of the puzzle. I was set to inherit $250, $0 from my grandparents' estate, plus the house. I'd worked my ass off for that. It was supposed to be my safety net, my future. But now, she was claiming she was entitled to half the inheritance because she was my wife, and somehow that meant she deserved half of everything I had. She even started saying she was entitled to the house because we built this life together, even though I knew she was planning to sell her shares of the house the moment I was out of the picture. That's when I realized I had to act fast. I couldn't let her take everything, especially not my life savings. I started researching my legal options, talking to a lawyer friend of mine. The lawyer confirmed what I suspected. I could fight for my inheritance, especially since the money she transferred was suspicious, and I could also contest her claim to the house. The thing was, she was already trying to spin her story to the family, claiming I was controlling, paranoid, and that she'd been forced into a corner by my accusations. I knew I had to keep my cool, gather more evidence, and prepare for a fight. I wasn't going to let her walk away with my money and my house just because she was a manipulative bitch. I started documenting everything, the transfer receipts, her messages, her lies. I also kept tabs on her phone and bank accounts. I wanted to build a case that she was trying to cheat me out of what's rightfully mine. Meanwhile, she kept up her act, crying, pleading, saying she loved me, that she'd never do anything to hurt me, but I could see through her. I saw the way she looked at Mark, the way she'd lie about just talking and nothing happening, even though I had the proof right in front of me. I knew she was lying, and I knew she'd do anything to keep the money, the house, and whatever else she thought she could get away with. The emotional toll was brutal. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and angry all at once. I'd trusted her with my life, my future, and she'd thrown it all away. For some guy she barely knew, I kept asking myself how I could have been so blind. Every time I looked at her, I saw the girl I fell in love with, but underneath that, I saw the cold, calculating woman she'd become. It was like she'd been planning this for months, maybe longer. I also felt a strange sense of clarity. I realized I couldn't keep living in denial. I had to fight for what's mine, my inheritance, my house, my dignity. I decided then and there that I wouldn't let her manipulate me, spin me into a corner, or walk away with everything I'd worked so hard for. I was done playing nice. I was going to get my revenge, and I was going to do it legally, smartly, and without letting her see how much she'd hurt me. Now I'm sitting here, thinking about the next move. I've got the evidence, the lawyer on speed dial, and a plan to confront her again. This time, not as the naive husband who trusted her blindly, but as someone who's ready to fight back. I know she's already trying to spin her lies to the family, to friends, to anyone who'll listen, but I won't let her win. Not this time. I've got everything to lose, and I'm determined to come out on top, even if it means tearing down her lies one by one. After I gathered all the evidence and talked to my lawyer, I realized I had a serious fight on my hands. Sarah wasn't about to go quietly into the night. She's always been a bitchy, manipulative woman, and now she was showing her true colors, lying, crying, and trying to turn everyone against me. Her whole game was to make me look like the bad guy, to make me the paranoid husband who couldn't trust his wife. But I knew better. I had the proof, and I was ready to use it. The first thing I did was confront her again, but this time, I laid everything out with a cold, calculated tone. I told her I knew about the affair, about the money transfer, about her claiming entitlement to the inheritance and the house. Her eyes widened when I revealed I had screenshots of her texts with Mark, all the explicit messages, and the hotel reservation they made. She got defensive, of course, and started screaming about how I was crazy, how I was trying to ruin her reputation, how I was just jealous because she was more beautiful than any other woman. I didn't rise to the bait. Instead, I kept my voice steady and told her I wasn't interested in her lies anymore. I told her I was going to fight for what's rightfully mine, my inheritance, my house, and my life savings. I explained that I had evidence of her transferring $100, $0 into her sister's account, which was a clear attempt to hide assets. I told her that I'd be consulting with lawyers to contest her claims to the house, especially since she was trying to claim half of everything based on her being my wife. She broke down then, crying and screaming, calling me a control freak, saying I was ruining her life, that she was entitled to her share. She kept saying she deserved half because she stood by me all these years, even though I knew that was a load of crap. The truth was, she'd been planning this for months, buying new clothes, going on trips, secretly meeting Mark. She thought she could cheat her way into my money, into my house and walk away scot-free. But I wasn't about to let that happen. I told her she needed to pack her bags and leave, that we'd be going to court over the inheritance and the house. I also told her she wasn't getting a penny of my savings until everything was settled. She looked at me with pure contempt, calling me a heartless bastard, saying I was ruining her life, and that she'd make sure I paid for this. That's when I saw the true bitch behind her fake tears. She was already plotting her next move, probably trying to turn our friends and family against me. I knew I had to be smarter. I started documenting everything, her lies, her threats, her manipulations. I was already talking to the lawyer about how to freeze her assets, how to prevent her from draining the money I was supposed to inherit. I also started making plans to secure the house, to get it legally in my name before she could do anything sneaky. I felt a mixture of rage and relief. Rage because she'd betrayed me so badly, and relief because I finally had the upper hand. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying the whole nightmare in my head, wondering how I'd let myself be so blind for so long. I thought about the good years, the memories we made, and then I thought about how she'd turned into this manipulative, lying version of herself. I felt disgusted, not just at her, but at myself for trusting her so blindly. I'd been a fool, but I wasn't anymore. I was done being the naive husband. The next day, I told her she needed to leave the house permanently. I showed her the legal documents I was preparing, restraining orders, financial claims, everything I could do to protect what's mine. She screamed, calling me a bastard, a control freak, and a jealous fool. She tried to guilt-trip me, saying I was ruining her life, that she'd be homeless if I pushed her out. But I didn't care. I knew I had to stand my ground. If I didn't, she'd walk all over me, take my money, and destroy what little dignity I had left. So I called a moving company, told her to pack her things, and made her leave that day. Watching her walk out the door, I felt a strange mix of relief and emptiness. I knew this wasn't the end, not by a long shot. But I also knew I had started the process of reclaiming my life. I'd fight for my inheritance, for my house, and for my sanity. Now I'm left with a house that feels colder than ever, a bank account that I'm trying to protect, and a broken heart that's trying to heal. I've learned that trust is fragile, that betrayal comes in many forms, and that sometimes the only way to get justice is to fight dirty. Sarah thought she could manipulate her way into my money, into my life. Well, she was wrong. I'm not finished yet. Not even close. The days following her departure were some of the most intense of my life. I threw myself into action, trying to piece my life back together while dealing with the fallout of everything that had happened. The house felt emptier than ever, silent, cold, and filled with memories I now saw in a different light. I kept replaying that night, that confrontation, and her sneering face when she realized I wasn't going to play her game anymore. I met with my lawyer again. We went over all the evidence I had, screenshots, bank transfers, her texts with Mark, the receipts for the hotel. The lawyer confirmed I had a solid case to contest her claim to the house and the inheritance. The transfer of $100, $0 into her sister's account was a huge red flag, and her attempts to claim half of my estate based on her marriage rights were weak, especially given the evidence of her ongoing affair and the financial manipulations. I felt a rush of relief knowing I was finally taking control of the situation. But Sarah wasn't done fighting. She started spreading lies to our friends and family, painting herself as the victim, claiming I'd been controlling and abusive. She even called some of my colleagues, trying to discredit me, saying I was unstable and dangerous. I had to be careful with what I said, because I knew she was trying to turn everyone against me. I kept quiet publicly, letting my lawyer handle the legal side and focusing on protecting myself financially. Meanwhile, I hired a private investigator to look into her activities. Turns out, she'd been meeting Mark almost every weekend, sometimes in hotels, sometimes at her sister's place. The pie caught them on camera, holding hands, sneaking into hotels, and even sharing kisses in public parks. That was the nail in the coffin, proof that she'd been lying about just talking and nothing happening. I felt a strange mix of vindication and disgust. She'd been lying to everyone, including her own family, about what she was doing behind my back. I also took steps to secure my financial future. I froze my bank accounts, changed all my passwords, and hired a financial advisor to help me protect what I had. I didn't trust her or Mark or even some of our mutual friends. I knew that once she realized she wasn't getting her way, she might try to do something drastic, like draining my accounts or selling the house without my consent. I needed to be prepared. One day I received a call from her, trying to negotiate. She begged me to settle, to let her keep some of the money, and to drop the claims on the house. She said she'd be willing to compromise if I just let her stay in the house and forget everything. I told her that wasn't happening. I was done playing her game. She had betrayed me too many times, and I wasn't going to let her manipulate me anymore. I told her I was pursuing full legal action, and if she didn't back off, she'd be facing serious consequences. That call was a turning point. I realized I had to go all in. I couldn't let her keep lying and spinning her web of deceit. I filed for divorce, and I also filed a lawsuit to contest her claims to the inheritance and the house. I wanted her out of my life completely. I also made sure to get a restraining order, just in case she tried to show up at my house or harass me further. The emotional toll was brutal. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and angry all at once. I trusted her with everything, my love, my future, my money, and she'd thrown it all away for some other man. Every day was a struggle, but I knew I had to stay strong. I kept reminding myself that I deserved better, that I was worth more than her lies and manipulations. I also started seeing a therapist. I needed someone to help me process all this chaos, to help me rebuild my confidence and trust in myself. It wasn't easy, and some days I felt like giving up. But I knew I had to keep fighting for myself, for my future, and for my peace of mind. I couldn't let her win, not after everything she'd done. Now I'm waiting for the court dates. I've got everything lined up, proof of her affair, the financial documents, the photos, ready to fight for my rights. I know she's probably planning her next move, maybe trying to find a way to get more money or even come back and manipulate the situation further. But I'm prepared. I've learned my lesson. Trust is fragile and betrayal cuts deep. But I also learned that I can stand up for myself, that I can fight for what's mine, and that in the end, honesty and integrity matter more than her lies. This entire ordeal has changed me forever. I don't know what my future holds, but I do know I won't be the same naive husband I was before. I'll rebuild, stronger and wiser. And if there's one thing I want anyone reading this to take away, it's this. Never ignore the signs, never let someone manipulate your trust, and always fight for what's right, even if it costs everything. The months that followed were a whirlwind of legal battles, emotional exhaustion, and painfully slow healing. I spent every spare moment in courtrooms, with lawyers or trying to piece together what my life had become. The judge eventually scheduled a hearing to settle the disputes over the inheritance and the house. I knew that Sarah was pulling out all the stops, trying to sway the outcome with her lies, tears, and manipulation. But I had the evidence, every message, every bank transfer, every secret rendezvous caught on camera. One morning I sat in the lawyer's office, staring at the court documents, feeling a strange mixture of hope and dread. The lawyer explained the process. If the court sided with me, I could keep the inheritance, the house, and even recover some of the money she tried to hide. But if she managed to sway the judge, I might be left with nothing. It was a tense, waiting game. I was exhausted both physically and emotionally, but I knew I had to stay strong. Meanwhile, Sarah was still trying to manipulate her way out of the mess. She'd been calling friends and family, spinning stories about how I was crazy, abusive, and controlling. She even managed to convince some of her own family members that I was the villain. It stung more than I could say. I'd always tried to be a good husband, a good man, and now I was being painted as the bad guy. But I knew the truth. I had the evidence, I had the law on my side, and I was determined to fight for what was rightfully mine. One day, I received a call from my lawyer. The judge had made the ruling. It wasn't the outcome I'd hoped for entirely, but it was enough. The court confirmed that I would retain the inheritance and the house, and that Sarah was to pay back the $100, $0 she transferred into her sister's account, plus additional damages for her financial manipulations. It was a victory of sorts, but it felt hollow. The emotional damage was done, and I knew I'd never fully recover from the betrayal. The aftermath was a mixture of relief and bitterness. I started the process of officially dividing assets, changing the title of the house into my name alone, and closing the chapter on that part of my life. But the scars remained. I couldn't shake the feeling of betrayal, the sense that the woman I loved and trusted had been planning this all along. And Mark, my so-called best friend, was still out there, probably laughing at how he'd played me. I decided to cut all ties with him. I confronted him directly, telling him I knew about his affair with Sarah and that I didn't want to see or hear from him again. His excuses were weak. He said he was lost, that he never meant for it to get so out of hand, but honestly I didn't care. The damage was done. I felt nothing but contempt for both of them now. They'd betrayed me so badly that I couldn't even look at them without feeling a surge of anger. As for Sarah, she moved out of town shortly after the court ruling. I don't know where she went or what she's doing now. I don't really care. I hope she's miserable, living with the consequences of her lies and betrayal. I've blocked her number, cut her out of my life completely. The only thing I'm focused on now is rebuilding myself, financially, emotionally, and mentally. Looking back, I realize I've learned some hard lessons. Trust is fragile, and betrayal can come from those you least expect. I also learned that you can't control other people's actions, but you can control how you respond. I chose to fight for what's mine, to stand my ground, and to come out the other side still standing. It's not easy, and I still have days when I feel overwhelmed by everything that happened. But I'm stronger now. I've started therapy, focusing on healing and learning to trust again, slowly, carefully. I've also made a vow to myself. Never again will I ignore the signs, never again will I let someone manipulate me out of my life's work and happiness. I want to rebuild better and wiser with a clearer sense of who I am and what I deserve. Most of all, I want others to know that if you find yourself in a similar situation, trust broken, betrayal exposed, you're not alone. Fight for yourself. Protect what's yours. And don't let anyone, no matter how close, take away your dignity or your future. Because in the end, the only person who truly has your back is you, and that's where my focus is now, on rebuilding my life brick by brick and never letting anyone exploit my trust again. Now, sitting here reflecting on everything, I realize just how much this ordeal has changed me. I used to be the kind of guy who believed in trust, in loyalty, in the idea that if you loved someone, they'd never betray you. Turns out that was naive. Betrayal comes in many forms, and sometimes it hits hardest from the people you least expect. Your wife, your best friend. It's a brutal lesson, but one I needed to learn. The whole experience has taught me that revenge isn't just about getting even with her or Mark. It's about reclaiming my life, my dignity, and my future. I fought hard for my inheritance and my house because those are the tangible symbols of what I've worked for, what I deserve. But the real victory is in the emotional strength I've gained, knowing I can stand up and fight back when everything feels like it's falling apart. I've come to see that the most important thing I can do now is focus on myself. I've started rebuilding my confidence, reconnecting with friends who support me and forging a new path forward. I've learned to set boundaries, to recognize red flags early, and to trust my instincts more than ever. The pain still lingers, but it's part of the process. It's made me more cautious, more aware, but also more resilient. To anyone reading this who might be going through something similar, let me say this: don't stay silent. Don't let betrayal define you, but don't ignore the signs either. Fight for what's yours, your happiness, your peace, your future. Be willing to cut out the toxic people, even if it hurts at first, because in the end, your well-being is what matters most. This story isn't just about revenge. It's about survival, about standing tall after being knocked down so many times. I won't pretend I've fully healed, but I'm getting there. Every day is a step closer to reclaiming my life piece by piece, and I'll never let anyone take that away from me again. Not her, not Mark, not anyone who tries to manipulate or betray me. I've learned that my worth isn't measured by their lies or manipulations. It's measured by how I pick myself up and keep moving forward. So, this is my story, raw, honest, and real. Betrayal hurts like hell, but it also teaches you who you really are. And I've realized I'm stronger than I ever thought possible. I'll keep rebuilding, keep fighting, and keep living my life on my own terms. Because at the end of the day, the only person who truly matters in this story is me. And I refuse to let anyone take that away.